Welcome to the Landscape Leadership Podcast. My name is Chad Diller, and I am your host today. I'm the Vice President here at Landscape Leadership. If you work at or own a company in the lawn and landscape industry, you are in the right place because this is where we talk about our candid thoughts about sales and marketing for companies just like yours. So thank you so much for joining us. Today's podcast episode is called Technology and a Better Process to Pre-Qualify Landscaping Leads. This is what we're going to talk about today. So if you are an owner of a company or a salesperson in the industry, this topic is going to be very near and dear to your heart. Let's paint a picture here. So company owners, salespeople, you all want the same things. You want to see your company grow. And this means selling more landscaping work with more ease and less aggravation along the way. Let's be honest. The problem, though, is that many of you are spending your time as unpaid consultants. Let that sink in for a minute, and you might be initially pulling back and saying, no, I don't. But just bear with me for the sake of argument here. Let's talk about some scenarios. These are really common. I've seen them a lot in my own career in the lawn and landscape industry. And so this is a couple things that you're probably running in contact with on a weekly basis or maybe at least a few times a month. The office sets up a design build consultation. You drive 30 minutes out to a prospect's property, and then you spend another 30 minutes on the property walking around with the homeowner, listening to them, asking some questions, only to find out that this prospect has a $5,000 budget for a $50,000 project. Then you drive 30 minutes back to the office. 90 minutes wasted. Sound familiar? Here's another one. Say you're selling maybe small install work or even some maintenance services, tree pruning, those types of things, and the office sets up a consultation again. They describe the scenario to you. You're pretty sure you know how much it's going to cost, but you have to have that visual validation. You have to go out to the property to see things. So you drive 30 minutes out to the property. And when you're walking around the property, it takes you 2 minutes to figure out, yep, this is the right price. You can pitch it to the client. Now, whether you sell that or not is another story. Say you give a ballpark project price $1,500 and the client accepts it. So you're fortunate enough that you actually sold the job, but then you still have another 30 minutes to drive back to the office. So 60 minutes out of your day. Worst case scenario is you spent all that time, couldn't close the job, and now you've wasted 60 minutes out of your day for not getting a sale. Time's money, right? Whether you're in business, whether you're in sales and it's not your business, time is money. And it's also the one resource that you have that is limited. You can't get more of it. How are you spending your time? Are you spending a lot of time on unqualified prospects? Do you spend too much time just driving around? Do you feel like some days you get paid to just drive around and say hello to different homeowners or business owners? So how can you overcome this? This is the problem. What can you do? I get it. In my 20 plus years in the lawn and landscape industry, I spent most of it selling. I did work in production, ended up in marketing eventually. Even in marketing then, I was involved in the sales process for a sales team. And I saw sales opportunities, whether I was in the field selling to homeowners, neighbors coming over to me, or getting leads that way. The 7+ years that I was an account manager where I did these scenarios that I just described to you. And even in marketing, in that role, supporting and getting leads for the sales team and making sure those were pre-qualified to hopefully not waste their time was one of my goals. And even now in my role now, I spend time selling. I talk to lawn and landscape company owners and I try to pre-qualify them so I don't waste my time. So I get this. I understand how hard this is. Problem is that a lot of companies in our industry really don't have any type of pre-qualification process. Maybe they have some things that they each try individually. Maybe things happen some of the times, but not all the times. But this is a problem that runs rampant in our industry. Some of those companies do have this pre-qualification process and have put things in place. Maybe you've done that, but maybe you're not leveraging technology to the best. And you might be wasting a ton of time as an unpaid consultant driving out to properties and not selling. So whether you have a process or not, I have some technology today that can help you pre-qualify these leads better. I'm going to have a link in the show notes to another podcast episode where we talked about some resources that you want to check out that you can actually leverage on your website so that your prospective clients can essentially pre-qualify themselves before they ever fill out a form or pick up the phone to call your office. So you definitely want to check those out. We're going to skip over that for today and talk more about the actual process, meaning after somebody has reached out to you for a consultation. So there's a few things that you can do. Some of these are more process related. Some of them do leverage technology and it intersects in some ways with that. But these are things I'd like you to consider. Just consider the way you're doing things and see if there's some of these that you can implement into your company. The first thing is fees. So no matter who you talk to, you're probably going to get a varying perspective on this, anywhere from not charging a fee to charging a lot of fees to work with prospective clients. One thing that I'm seeing grow in popularity, especially this post-pandemic world where homeowners have just invested a ton of money into their homes and renovating all types of the actual structure itself and the areas outside, is that a lot of companies have too many leads now. They have a lot of leads, and so they're spending all this time and they're not closing enough of them. There are tire kickers that come to your company, and one of the things that you can do is leverage a consultation fee. Yeah, actually making people pay for your time. Think about this. If I wanted to get my dryer fixed and I didn't know what was wrong with it, do you think someone's going to come out to my house and inspect it and spend a half hour here troubleshooting to tell me what's wrong with it? Yeah, they're going to do that. But guess what they're going to do? They're going to charge me a fee. You get a service fee. So why would this not be something if someone is interested in spending $250,000 in their backyard or even $10,000 that they would not expect? I understand that most of the industry is not doing this, but I can tell you, mentioning to the client that you have a consultation fee can be a great way to filter out bad fit prospects. In fact, I have a client that actually has a $75 consultation fee. They are booked out. They've been booked out for 2 or 3 years now for 4 weeks on consults for 2 designers. They have tons of opportunity, and people are paying this before they ever have anything placed on the schedule. Now, that can be a flat fee right out the gate that you pay it regardless, or if you want, you can credit it off of a sold project if that makes you feel better. I'm not saying $75 is the magic number. You could $150 you could probably get for this. What you should do is in that initial discussion with your client, whether this is mentioned on your website or you talk about it on the phone when you do connect with them, this should be brought up. Another option that a lot of companies are doing and have been for a number of years is leveraging a landscape design fee. Again, this should be mentioned on your website. It should be obvious that this is coming, and it should be a topic of conversation when you're having that pre-qualification call before the meeting's booked. And again, you can have the same options. It can be a standalone fee, or it could be something that's credit off a sold job. A step beyond that, though, I did have a client that we worked with for about 3 years who actually leveraged a design retainer, a non-refundable retainer, a lot of times over $10,000 before they drew a design. It might sound crazy to you, but this company has plenty of opportunities, and this is certainly not costing them. What happens is that non-refundable retainer, basically that customer has skin in the game. You've vetted them, they understand who you are and what you can do for them. You've pre-qualified a budget range you're going to stay within, and they're basically committing to the project before you do all of this work and spend all this time doing that. So design retainers might be good for especially higher end projects. I have an article that I'm going to link to in the show notes about charging consultation or design fees. And if you're interested in doing that, I want you to check that out. So I've alluded to these things first to explain that this could be part of your process and some of the things that you would offer up, but you want to discuss them with your clients. And so one of the things that you should be doing, whether you have consult fees or design fees or anything, is actually having some sort of formal, short pre-qualification call or meeting with prospective clients before you actually book consultations. Don't just have your office setting appointments. That might be fine for smaller maintenance work, or if you can fit it into your schedule while your account managers are driving around and looking at a lot of different properties. But when it comes to these higher caliber, higher dollar value, higher expertise services like design build, I would not recommend just setting appointments. You should be having some kind of pre-qualification meeting on the phone or a video call. before you agree to go out. At minimum, you should have a short list of questions that the person on that phone is going to be asking your prospective client. It's ideal in a lot of these situations to have your landscape designer or a design assistant that understand more about landscape than possibly maybe your office staff. I know that in my previous role at the company, when I moved from account management, I was working all the marketing for the company, and one of my duties was to take these calls. And so I had a list of questions where I used to go over different things and ask criteria, like how big do you think your patio is going to be? Okay, you don't know how big. What do you plan on doing it? Do you need a dining set? Do you want a lounge area? Do you want a fire pit area? Trying to get an idea of how big this patio would be, and then having a starting point at least. In a lot of cases, whether you do this before the call or while you're on the call, it can also be helpful to leverage a tool like Google Earth and pull up an image of the property and start to look at it and have some perspective that way. Throw some ballpark ranges at your prospects. Have a cheat sheet. Maybe you know that patios price from X amount of dollars per square feet to X. Maybe you understand that renovating the front of a house and tearing out the existing foundation landscaping typically runs a certain figure, and you look on Google Earth and you need to see, oh, now there's a whole front of the garage in addition to the front of the house that's included with that. And it gives you some perspective and allows you to use some technology to maybe throw out some ballpark ranges and see if that deters a bad fit prospect. Again, appointments are then scheduled for pre-qualified budgets, and timeline might be something else that you want to talk about because, again, they might have the budget, they might want it done in 2 weeks, and you might be out 6 to 8 weeks. So that's something you want to be having conversation about on this pre-qualification call. Point is this: try to not have any or very little wasted consultations on bad fit clients. If you decide in your process that you are going to leverage consult fee or design fee, you could actually take the payment for that on that call. If someone balks at it, then you know that you probably have a bad fit prospect. You might also discuss on that pre-qualification call the fact that when the designer comes out and you guys agree that you think it makes sense to move forward, they're going to discuss a design fee with you, depending upon the scope of your project, and it's going to range from this to this. And then again, if it gets credited off your job, you can determine if you're going to do that or not. But it's something you should be discussing because then you're not wasting time and surprising the prospect with that later. Another thing that I want to talk about, another useful tactic that you can use that also connects with some technology, is a process that's called assignment selling. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You can give prospects homework before they meet. Now, you might be saying, whoa, that's crazy, but think about this, okay? So even if someone's pre-qualified with budget, they're pre-qualified with timeline, you think it's going in the right direction, they should be more mentally invested and understand exactly what they're getting into. Because if they don't, they're going to waste your salesperson's time, your designer's time. And so there might be small pieces of technology, things that you have produced on your website in a digital format. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a questionnaire that they need to fill out that gets then sent to the designer. So going into the conversation, they already have specific information about this project, about the client and what they want. And again, it shows a buy-in from your prospect that they're interested in this. They're not just asking you to do everything, they're invested in this process. You can have that content positioned on your website, send them links to it, have them go to it. You might even have some tools like our clients use the HubSpot CRM. And so when they send emails, they can actually see when people click on those links, when they visit pages. And so you can actually know how invested this prospect is going into your consultation. Now, I'm not suggesting that you call them up and cancel your consultation if they don't honor that, but on that pre-qualification call, you can ask a very pointed question like, hey, we're going to prepare, we're going to do our homework to make sure that we can have a productive consultation with you so that's a meaningful, useful hour of your day. I just need you to do 2 things that are going to take you about 5-10 minutes. Could you do that for me? They'll say yes. And then you say, okay, I'm going to send you a 2-minute video I want you to watch. And then I'm going to send you this 3-page fact sheet on whatever it is. I want you to read that. Can you agree that you'll look at that and watch that video before we come out? That's called assignment selling. Again, you're giving them assignment. Whether you're checking their homework or not is another question. I have another innovative idea for you. If you want to pre-qualify prospects and use technology, I have a really cool tool that I'm going to introduce you to today. I'm going to let the creator of this tool tell you a little bit more about it, but I want to refer back to those two examples. You got the example of wasting 90 minutes to go out to a prospect that has a unqualified budget, and you have the other one where you wasted 60 minutes going out because you needed visual validation for a small or large project to see what was on the property. What if you could actually see the property before you go out to talk to the prospect? What if you could see it before you actually even talk to them on the phone with a pre-qualification call? Imagine filling your calendar up with pre-qualified consultations. And imagine your prospects actually have an easier customer experience because of this. Because they're invested in the process and they're giving you info going into this so that you can have a more meaningful conversation that's not quite as vague and you're not trying to probe and discover details. What if you had an innovative tool that allowed you to walk around that property and see what things are like before you talked? Well, check this out. I have a special guest for you today, Jeff Raley, who is the creator of a really cool tool that he's going to talk about today called Groundwork. And we're talking today about how to use technology, how you could use that to pre-qualify your sales leads for your landscaping company. But before we get into the tool and talk about why it's so useful, Jeff, we'll just give our listeners and viewers some background. You and I met, I think we got associated on LinkedIn, right? That's the first place.
Yeah. You just find people who are putting out cool stuff, talking about the same things you're talking about. And I think that's how we initially got connected. Yeah.
And then you had asked me to come on to your podcast at your booth at Hardscapes North America this past fall out in Louisville. So we had a good time doing that, talking a little bit about technology and other things. I have to tell the listeners, we're doing this whole podcast episode about how people cannot waste time. Jeff and I have already recorded this interview and then realized the audio was terrible. So we wasted time going into this. So for whatever it's worth, this is our second attempt at this. We had a great conversation the first time. I just find it completely ironic that happened for this specific episode.
Yeah, it happens.
It does. So Jeff, why don't you tell everybody what is Groundwork?
Yeah, so Groundwork is we call it a sales software. So we aren't an estimating tool. We aren't a lead gen tool. We are very focused on helping contractors in the green industry and others, residential contractors, really run a better sales process. So to us, that means less running around town, more meetings that actually produce something in terms of revenue, and a more pleasant customer experience for the end client while saving the contractor a bunch of time. So we have a tool, it's like a video-based sales tool.
So explain how this works. From start to finish, how does this work from the client perspective? What are they seeing? What are you asking them to do?
Most contractors have the form on their website that's just like the normal contact us form. And I like to say that there's very little joy for anybody filling out a contact us form. Like it's just the thing you got to do. And where does it go? Is somebody ever going to get back to me? It's kind of that dead end type of situation. So our form, it is a form on a contractor's website, but we message it very differently. So it's a very engaging interface for the homeowner. We let them know. We have some graphics that we help design for the contractors we work with. And it's a phone screen and it says, get started with your project by submitting a project video. And then our system collects some basic contact information. Our system texts that customer right away and gives them the opportunity to walk through their project on video. We also can customize that experience with the contractor's branding, and then the homeowner's producing all that information and we collect it and bring it on the backside of things for contractors to review and start the sales process from there.
All right, I'm going to talk about probably something that someone in the audience right now is thinking of. They're saying, what? So someone's going to my website and I'm going to tell them that they have to send me a video. There's the one argument for, like Mildred, who's 80 years old, which I would argue, like my mom's 70, she sends me videos all the time. So that is a consideration. I'm sure it doesn't have to be the only path that people take. They can probably do it with or without the video, correct?
Yep.
Okay. But the preferred way to do it is to send a video. How, from a user standpoint, you say I am Joe homeowner and you're sending this to me and I want a patio in my backyard. Like what kind of instructions, what am I supposed to know, what I'm supposed to film in the video? how do you make sure that video actually is what the contractor actually wants to get?
Yeah, so there's a couple things I would love to hit on. To answer your question directly, we have a tool we call instruction blocks, and that is an opportunity for the contractors we work with, whether it's the business owners or just the person you think is the most pleasant to look at on the screen. We actually give you the opportunity to upload a video where you're describing exactly what you want them to capture. Now, we also help, there's a way to create another type of video that has some visual aspects to it, like icons and like, hey, show us site access and show us the start at the back of the yard and walk towards the project space. But in general, the project videos are pretty darn good. We instruct the homeowners to talk about their project just like they're talking to somebody who's at their house with them. This day and age, it doesn't take a whole lot of training. I grew up in the age of MTV Cribs. I don't know if you remember MTV Cribs at all, but
yeah, I was more of a Pimp My Ride kind of guy, but
yeah, there you go.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, same deal. Yeah, it's like that whole thing of, hey, give us a tour of what you want. That's pretty ingrained in how we do things. We see that, we know what it means. And we found with even just very little instruction, the project videos are very valuable. And it's much better than just getting one still photo. Decipher what's going on. You don't get the inflection of the person's voice. So video is really a kind of the great equalizer in terms of sales process.
So basically what you're saying is the contractor can record an instructional video. Listen, when you start out on the street and walk around the side of your house, come back to the backyard, start out farther, because you can always stop the video and zoom in to see things, and then walk over and then point out whatever and just have a conversation real quick with me. And then maybe walk around the other side of the house and then back out to the street. So that way people understand kind of the contractor knows what the site access is, what the terrain is, and has a general idea. And that's really helpful too, because I know a lot of times when I used to take pre-qualification calls, people would say they wanted a patio, and you're asking questions like, okay, what do you do? Do you want to have a dining set? Do you want to have a lounge area? Do you want a fire pit? And you're trying in your head to kind of calculate what you think the square footage would be. And then you're looking at Google Earth and you're trying to figure it out that way. But this would be nice because you could pause the video, see, okay, there's a slider there. That's probably 6.5, probably 7 feet, 8 feet wide, that slider. And now I can extrapolate that and look on the video and be like, oh, that's 30 feet approximately. And then if they want to do this, we probably have to come out at least 20 feet. And you can have some context before you call them of how big things are.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the basic kind of sizing, like general scope type of stuff. But you also get to see things like, sometimes a homeowner might not think about a very large tree that is very close to the project area that has digging around that tree is going to be problematic. So there's like stuff like that you're able to see using our tool that homeowners aren't going to be able to explain on the phone. So there's some like data points you can collect. But the coolest part, and what we hear from our customers, is that they really benefit from hearing the customer. That's something that we are able to replicate pretty well through video. Because they'll say things like, oh yeah, we moved in 10 years ago and we haven't done this project and we've really been wanting to. Right now, our neighbors did this thing and we think we might want to do that type of thing over here because we love going to their place and sitting around the fire pit. And like, you get some of that emotion stuff going. And so that can be just as effective and useful in the sales process. So you can figure, where are they coming from? What are they looking to get done? What are they trying to accomplish? Not just from a nuts and bolts project standpoint, but from how they're going to use a space or what they're trying to accomplish in their life.
That's a really great point, because if you study anything about communication, 2/3 of it's nonverbal. So you have, if you write a form on a website and send it in, it's minimal text. You're probably only getting like 20 to 30% of exactly what they're trying to communicate. So the other part would be body language and tone of voice. Now, of course, you're not getting body language, but you're getting tone of voice. So you can really hear in these videos, like the excitement, the frustration. Like you said, you can get these hot buttons. So then when you enter into it, you can, instead of just talking about the patio, you can talk about the reason behind the patio or whatever they have going on there. How long of a video? Can they do multiple videos? Is it just one video? How does that work?
Yeah, initially we started with one video, and it works really well. The size limit on the video, a lot of times with people trying to do this, what we figured out in a roundabout way, if they're trying to do a video, it's too big because the file sizes, especially with the modern phones, are very large. So even sending them via email is challenging. So We take all that out of the equation, make it really easy because it's just a web-based form that's attached to your account as the contractor. So we've had 8-9 minute long videos. The average video is probably somewhere between 2 minutes and 2.5 minutes, something like that. But even that short amount of time, you get a good understanding. So that's the initial video. We just rolled out an update where they can upload multiple videos, and so that's helpful. That's super new, so I don't have much data on that yet. But the other cool thing is if they miss or they don't include something that you think might be important, you can use our tool is through a text message and just request another media asset.
Oh yeah, like you were talking about that tree. You're like, hey, I noticed that the place you're in a patio is really shady. Can you go back there and point the camera up a little bit and see what's casting all that shade? And that might be able to help you too.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So I understand this from the end user's standpoint. They submit this, they send it, probably some kind of message. We're going to be looking at this. And you're just saying, yeah, wouldn't you as a contractor rather spend 4 minutes watching this video than 30 minutes driving there, 30 minutes driving back, and whatever time you waste on there? So what is the experience like for a contractor when they get a notification, I'm sure at some point, that the videos come in and they can watch that? What does it look like? I know you have something beyond the video tool, which I don't want to get really too much into, of managing your leads and that sort of thing, but you can briefly describe that. But what does it look like? What's the interface for a contractor after someone submits a video?
Yeah, it's pretty standard. We like to think that we've kept things simple enough that there's really good value with not a lot of too many buttons and clicking around and that type of stuff. So really the gist of it is you get a notification, email or text, whatever you prefer. You can log into our dashboard, and we do have a Kanban dashboard. So if you're familiar with columns to track progress and stage of a lead, typically the left-hand side of that is like just brand new, and then you work them through some stages. So we have some of that tracking, but we also integrate with many of the popular CRMs out there through Zapier. So we try to play really friendly with those resources that contractors already have. But the unique thing that we do is, as I mentioned, at the text messaging. So if you click into one of the leads, you're able to share additional files with that lead, whether it's, hey, we did this just down the street. This is something we just completed this project. You can include a PDF rendering or a picture from your phone of a sketch that you've done or something like that. So there's some rich media sharing there, and just generally connect with the homeowner. Like, people are in their text message inbox a lot more than they are in really any other form of communication these days. That is, we have an organized place to do that. We hear very often the business owner will have a text message chain from a bunch of leads, but they don't know the names of the leads. It's, hey, I need a patio, and then it's just,
who is this? Who this?
Who this? Like that whole thing. So we provide a very streamlined way to keep track of that, especially in the early stages of the sales process.
Great. So I'm sure you get lots of objections to this. So people, they're probably like, wow, that sounds cool. But so what are some of the but statements that you get from landscapers or contractors in general about using a tool like this? What is some of the big concerns that they bring up? What are most common ones?
Yeah, you kind of mentioned one is my grandma Susie going to be able to do this? We have core functionality, but we understand every business is different, right? So we have certain contractors that will say they have great lead flow, they've got a very tight niche that they're working with, and they'll say, you know what, if you're not able to send me a video of your project, then that is our sales process. If you don't want to go through this groundwork process, then we aren't going to go see you. But then there's other contractors who are kind of like, hey, we'll just, for the ones that are out in that area that takes a long time to get to, we're going to use groundwork for that. And we're priced that both of those scenarios make sense in terms of an ROI. But that's a lot of it is, I don't want everybody to do this, or like, how does this fit into my process and that? So we're pretty flexible with how people have used it, but there's a little bit of my market's this way and my market's that way. And we've proven now. The one other thing that we get every once in a while, which is less so now than maybe even just a year ago, is, well, we value the handshake type of mentality. And there's certainly value to that. But I think there's a realization when you dig into that, it's like, well, do you want to shake every single person's hand? Do you really want to do that? And we've proven that the benefit of using our system, especially when you have that welcome video in there, you're getting, that is a digital handshake, and it works really well to introduce when you kind of have that video in the experience for homeowners to participate in. and in view of you saying, hey, I'm the business owner. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to look at this. That goes a long way. And it's honestly a more pleasant experience than, hey, we'll come see you in 2.5 weeks. The experience is the way that homeowners want to interact with contractors of any stripe is they largely want to start digitally, and that's where their search starts. And so our process just brings them slowly into, in an efficient way, brings them into the in-person process.
Yeah. Really great. It's all a matter of how you leverage the technology and what the purpose that you're putting it there.
Yep.
If you can tell someone they have to complete some kind of assignment like this, small thing, but you position it in a way that it's for their benefit.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that and you can say, listen, we want to save you time. We want to be able to do this and give you, interesting information before we come out and just have more perspective so we can have a meaningful conversation that you're going to really enjoy. This is just a little step I need you to take. Minimize it. I always like to tell people when you're requiring something, if you think it's a big deal, don't act like it's a big deal. Just tell them this is what our customers do. And it's really helpful. It'll only take you a couple minutes. It's really easy.
The magic words that I like to coach contractors and in the call centers and the office admins start with is, can I tell you a little bit about our sales process? There's a lot of power in those words, because one, it proves that you have a sales process. So it's not like just a Joe Schmo person who's just gonna set you apart from people who don't. And usually that person will say yes, especially if they've called you, right? They're like, yeah, I want to participate. So that really opens up the door, no matter what your sales process is, frankly, whether you're using groundwork or something else. Like, it's a really good thing to say, because it welcomes them in with a yes too. Yes, I would love to hear about that. And like, sure, they're bought in. You're on the same team at that point, and you can start from a really solid spot if you start with that phrase.
So what kind of feedback have you been getting from clients that have adopted this in part of their process to get these video walkthroughs from clients?
Yeah, in general, the two things that we like to hear, the music to our ears, is, hey, this saved us time, or customers more likely to buy because of this slick process. And we have a page on our website that enumerates some of that. One of the other things that we've heard is contractors are able to increase their price because of the experience. So we've heard that. We've heard, hey, groundwork has paid for itself in the first week, because, hey, I didn't have to run out and run that appointment. And depending on where it is and who you are and what your hourly rate is, it doesn't take long to pay off our monthly fee, just because you're aligning yourself with opportunities that are good fits for you and not wasting time on the bad ones. So those are a couple things that we measure. Time saved. Many of our contractors will point to that metric, but more and more we're getting contractors saying, hey, we're first. That's another thing we hear a lot, especially in the green industry, is we're the first people to get back to this lead. And it's not just a first phone call. It's like you were saying, a substantive conversation about the project, because you get a chance to take a look at it. And then there's the stats on, like, first to respond is more likely to win the project. Like, there's stats out there like that. Yeah, that's a couple of the points of feedback we get.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the return on ROI is probably even greater now if you consider all the gas you're wasting, with it now being like $4.25 to $5.25 a gallon, depending where you are in the country.
Yeah, I can't say I'm rooting for higher gas prices. It makes the sea of contractors that we work with extra sensitive. And when I'm on the last week, I've been on sales calls. It is brought up from contract. Gas is this much. I'm not trying to waste my time, and it's just expensive to run out to this area of town. And so it's a factor for sure.
Yeah. Jeff, thanks so much for just kind of teasing everybody's brain with this tool and this whole new concept of getting a video walkthrough from a prospective client before you even go and call them on the phone and pre-qualify them. I just think it's a fantastic idea. What are some ways that people can get in touch with you or learn more about your product?
The best way is to go to hellogroundwork.com. You'll be able to, on the site, you can book a demo. We've got some easy how it works videos. There's just 4 2-minute videos that explain what we do. And then you can also book a demo or sign up right from the site. That's happening more and more, which is great. Our team is awesome. So once you sign up, we get you onboarded. Usually it only takes a week to get up and running. So it's a really quick and easy, lightweight tool, but very powerful, a quick ROI. And yeah, so head to Hello Groundwork, and then my email is just Jeff jeff@hellogroundwork.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Jeff, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciate what you contributed to the conversation. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me, Chad.
So a big thanks again to Jeff Raley for coming on the podcast today. If you want to check out their tool, go to hellogroundwork.com. So this is what I want you to do. Here's your assignment. I want you to take a couple weeks and add up all the wasted time that your team spends on unqualified budgets, driving back and forth just to get visual validation. Think about all this time that you're wasting and look at if there's any of these pieces we talked about today, the things like fees or assignment selling or a tool like Groundwork to implement in your sales process to keep you from wasting time on unqualified prospects. Whether you implement one or all these technological tools, you can do better when it comes to pre-qualifying your leads. It's going to save you time, and it's also going to save your prospect time too. Remember, they're taking off work in a lot of situations and coming home to meet with you, and you don't want to waste their time either. We have a lot of great resources for you, so please go to landscapeleadership.com, check out the blog. There's all types of articles on leveraging technology, improving your sales process in your marketing. You definitely want to check that out. You can connect with me as well on YouTube. Just search for Chad Diller or look for me on LinkedIn, where I commonly share a lot of different tips. If you feel like this episode was super helpful to you and probably could be helpful to one of your industry colleagues in a different market, feel free to forward the episode to them so that they can get these tips as well. Here's to not wasting time on bad fit prospects and to ultimately selling more and making your company grow the way you want it to. Thanks a lot. Have a really great day.